All right, it looks like we are live. So, welcome everybody to episode 30 of the World Map Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, and joining me as always from New York City, my lovely co-host Clark.
Hello.
Man, you look extra lovely this morning. It's almost like you just got a lot of beauty sleep and just woke up.
I literally did just wake up because I forgot we were broadcasting at 10. So,
Yeah. Sorry about that, man. It's been, I don't know, like leading into the holidays, all so much crazy stuff going on. Stuff keeps getting scheduled, and it's crazy, man. Remember the good old days when we like were kids, or even like in college, and the weekends were just time to sleep and not leave your room and just play video games. Those were the
yeah.
days. Those were the days. I mean, you would have to leave to get some food, obviously. Get some meat. Got to get that meat.
I mean, I didn't even eat yet today. That's the crazy thing because, I was
Dude,
sleeping.
first podcast ever. You're not noshing on something, I think.
I know. Well, I mean, the problem is I've tried going to bed with bacon just sitting there, but it doesn't work.
Is that because you just eat it in the middle of the night and then you wake up wondering what happened to your bacon?
Yes. Although I saw it on an episode of Shark Tank, and all of the judges thought it was a terrible idea, or all the investors or whatever, But I thought it was the greatest idea ever, is this bacon cooking alarm clock.
Oh, snap. Yeah, that sounds to me like a pretty good idea.
Waking up to the smell of bacon right next to your bed, you don't even have to get up. Yes.
Yes, indeed. Although if there was the bacon smell, that's actually going to be more effective than an alarm clock at waking me up, because I'm going to want that bacon. Like, I'm just going to instinctively wake up because I'm going to smell bacon.
Yes. No, I mean, I think that really should be something that exists. They should have funded it. I'm upset that I don't have one.
We're looking at you, Mark Cuban. Better fix it.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, hey, this is the internet's #1 meat podcast, but also we're I think so. I mean, I don't know.
Other podcasts about just meat.
I wonder actually if there are no other podcasts specifically just about meat. I feel like we should start a spinoff and fill that niche for the internet.
Yes.
But until then, this is probably the podcast where meat is most appropriately talked about. Yeah. But we also cover everything in the world that could be on the map in terms of gaming and technology and movies, TV, all your cool nerd news stuff. So without any further ado, I suppose that means we should get right into what we've been playing this weekend, the backlog. So Clark, we had Mike Drucker on the show recently,
yes.
whose brand of comedy is a little bit about depression sometimes.
Yes.
But you actually went on a quest about depression this week.
Yeah, I played a game called Depression Quest. It was recommended to me by a friend because some person that's really close to me actually has been suffering from depression her whole life. And as someone who does not have it myself, it's been something that is very hard for me to understand. And this is actually a game that was created not as something fun to play, but rather as something that helps at least simulate in some way as an interactive fiction game what it might be like as someone that is living with depression. So it gives you a series of everyday life events, and you have to try to manage your illness and get through it. But all the options you can choose from are the types of options and thoughts that somebody with depression may have. And so it kind of gives you some kind of experience about what it's like to make decisions with that kind of mindset. And it actually helped me understand it a lot better than a lot of the literature on it, probably because rather than just reading about it in some kind of sanitized clinical context, you're actually going through the motions and making the decisions. So, I mean, it's not a normal kind of game, but it is free to play. And if you know anybody with depression, it's actually something that probably will help you understand them a bit more.
That's interesting. That actually brings a lot of ideas to the forefront for me about, what could we do with the context of interactive media around other, whether it's other types of mental illness and things like that, or it's like addictions and things of that nature, right? I think, because I work in public health quite a bit, I think about like what could we do with an interactive experience like this to understand, what someone who's trying to quit smoking, for example, goes through and a different waypoints throughout their quit journey and things like that. So I think lots of potential for games to have impact in these ways, and they're not just solely be for entertainment, but also to be a learning tool and a tool for empathy and things of that nature.
Right, and it's interesting because there's so much more potential there for games to be used for all these other things, but it seems to me that it's held back because of the stigma about it, that it is only for certain kinds of people and it is only for entertainment. I mean, when I was in basic training, we used a Super Nintendo with some special hookup in order to do rifle training, for example. So games have been used for a long time to train for other things. So,
Yeah. You bring up the Army example. I remember having a lot of fun in those tank simulators up on
right.
hydraulics. Reminded they were kind of like those old, if you've ever been to like Myrtle Beach to the mall in the 90s, and they had kind of those like roller coaster simulators and things you would get inside
Right.
of. Yeah, man, good stuff, good stuff. So I tried out, believe it or not, I actually tried out several mobile games this week.
What?
A couple anyway. Yeah, so I've been hearing a lot about Lara Croft Go, and spoiler alert for future in the show, but Lara Croft Go actually won Best Mobile Game at the Game Awards this past Thursday. And so I had been hearing like all this buzz all year long, really about Lara Croft Go, and I'm a Tomb Raider fan since the reboot. I actually kind of despise the old Tomb Raider games.
Yeah.
That's a
Both were
whole
terrible.
they yeah, it's like they tried to make them into platforming games with horrible controls. And I really loved the Tomb Raider reboot that they did. Thought that was just such a perfect game, and looking forward to playing Rise of the Tomb Raider very soon. Hopefully before the end of the year when we do our Game of the Year show for the World Map podcast, probably like early January ish. And so I decided to give Lara Croft Go a try, see what that was about. It's a very simple game, but it is fun. It's a puzzle game, really. So you think about Lara Croft, you think about exploring tombs, and you think about action and adventure. But this is developed specifically for the mobile platform very well. So it's a puzzle game where you swipe your finger to move Lara Croft across the game map or the board for each level, and there are little dots, so it's not really a grid system, it's more of a path system, and there's a dot at each spot on the path. And so you swipe once, and she moves in the direction that you swipe along the path each time. What they do is they mix it up by putting in blocks you have to push, enemies who you can only attack by walking into them from the side and shooting them with your guns, enemies who will follow you if you get within a certain number of spaces around them. So you have to plot out your path around the level to get them to follow you through a trap without catching up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of cool, very clever little things in here. There are, the traditional puzzles where there are the buttons or the platforms that you have to step on or push something on to give it weight to raise other platforms. So I didn't quite feel as though Tomb Raider, maybe it is the best mobile game of the year, but it didn't do anything like new or special for me like Monument Valley did last year, for example. So I can't quite say that I'm like enthralled with the Tomb Raider Lara Croft Go game on iOS, but it is a good time waster, and it's a good mobile game too because you don't have to necessarily have signal or an internet connection to play it, like Hearthstone, for example, which is kind of my go-to on the iPhone. So I do recommend it. It's an inexpensive game, and especially if you like puzzle games, I think you'll like it. It starts off probably a little too easy, but I think it's trying to probably teach people who don't play a lot of games, that more casual mobile audience, how to play this sort of game. But it does get increasingly more difficult and almost to the point of one of those really frustrating, difficult puzzle games and a couple of levels, but you feel so smart, obviously, after you finish the puzzle. And I thought it was fun. I wasn't blown away by it, like a lot of people were, but you know. But you were probably blown away, I'm gonna guess, by the other game in your backlog this week, which was Xenoblade Chronicles
X.
X.
That's actually a different game.
Right. So Xenoblade Chronicles was Wii, right? Late in the life of the Wii.
Yes, it was a game. It came out in Japan, of course, and then in Europe, and it did not come out in the United States for a while until after that. They didn't even change the voices.
It was one of those games. What was that called? Was it like Project Rainfall? I
Yeah,
want to
or
say
Operation Rainfall.
Yeah, yeah.
It had Xenoblade Chronicles, Pandora's Tower, and one other Wii RPG, but I don't remember.
Yeah, and the whole story behind that is basically in the West, a lot of Wii owners felt like, wow, there are all these great games in Japan that we've never gotten for the Wii. The Wii is like kind of died off late in its life, and they got on the internet and made a lot of noise, and eventually these games got brought over to the West.
Of course, Reggie says that it wasn't because of that noise, but
Yeah, okay. Well, you know what, Reggie. Okay, we see you, Reggie. We see you, Reggie.
yeah, it's funny though because that game was released here as a limited release. I don't think they thought it was going to do well, and then it sold phenomenally. And now Shulk is a character in Smash Bros. So, but Xenoblade Chronicles X, gameplay wise, it's very very similar. Just massive, huge open worlds to explore. I mean, really like bigger than Skyrim, kind of in terms of just size, and you can go everywhere. The game really, if you like exploring and just getting lost in environments, it is the game for you because that is really what most of it seems to be about. And see, the problem is I played Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, so I want to compare this game to that, and that just brings up a lot of the annoyances I have with the game. But I'll hold off a little bit on those and just talk a bit more about the good things I like about this game. Well, first off, it's a sci-fi game, takes place in modern to future times, so it doesn't have so much fantasy going on, which is really cool because it's, most of the time RPGs, they have some kind of fantasy element, or it seems like it takes place in medieval times. This one, there are robots, there are spaceships and monsters, but it's a Japanese style RPG with an MMO style battle system, to say the least about that, which functions very well. But I actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about the stuff I don't like.
Dude, unleashed, man.
Okay, first off,
stop trying to be nice and just
no. The thing is, I really like the game because I love exploring, but I can't help but feel disappointed every time I compare it to Xenoblade Chronicles. But first off, character creation is so tedious because usually when you choose to make a character, you can choose the sex or the gender, and then from there you change the facial features and all kinds of other stuff about the character one by one. Here, after you choose the whether it'll be male or female, then it makes you choose, I guess, a face or body type, and it goes like boy A, boy B, or young boy A, young boy B, etc. And like, I can't really tell much of a difference. It shows different hair, and the face is a bit different. But then depending on which one you choose, you have only a limited selection of hairstyles and otherwise to choose for that. And so...
Well, that's because people who are larger than other people can't style their hair legally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even that. It's like boy A has different hairstyle options than boy B. Why not just have face type, hairstyle as two separate options,
Right, yeah.
I mean, and the thing is it's a different option, but you can mix and match almost everything, but it's dependent upon the face type or whatever you choose at the beginning, rather than that also being just a separately selectable thing that's mix and matchable with everything else. And so it's so frustrating going through that because, like, oh, I make all these subtle little changes to the character, then I'm thinking, no, I'd rather have this face type, and I have to pretty much essentially delete all of that just to go back to where I chose the face type. And so that's the first annoyance. The second annoyance I found, this for me is something I find annoying, but other people might like it, is the game doesn't seem to focus that much on its plot. Yes, you can go through the story. In fact, it gives you an arrow just to get to the next on the map that always tells you where to go to progress the story. But and it was like that in Xenoblade Chronicles as well. But the thing is in Xenoblade Chronicles, the story was the main focus of the game, and then you could do all this exploring, and it's very nice and it's very fun and very enjoyable. Here, it seems like the plot is secondary to just the all the other crap you can do, and so. To me, it seems almost like there's just a lack of focus, unless the focus is just explore and do really anything and everything you want. But without some kind of direction. And I find that very frustrating because though I like to look around, I also like something that drives me to progress the story so that I don't feel like I just get lost and get bored of the game.
Yeah, it sounds to me a lot like what Fallout 4 suffers from, which, I'm right there with you. It's a game that I love, but it's a game that frustrates me because there's supposedly this great narrative to go along with it. But to me, it becomes more about the narrative that I create for myself because the game doesn't treat its own story with that much weight. It doesn't take it that seriously. It doesn't do anything to encourage you to quickly progress the story along. And by the time I do a main quest mission, I've lost any investment that I had in those characters in that story because I've been doing my own thing for 10 hours.
Right. No, I completely agree with that. And that's something I find a bit frustrating. Another thing that's a bit frustrating is even though exploration seems to really be a big focus of the game, a lot of the technologies you get, such as your Skell, which is the mech suit and such, and the flying module for it, do not get unlocked until much further along in the game. And so you're exploring everywhere by foot. And there is a fast travel system, which I am very thankful for, but still, in all of the promos and everything, they show you flying mechs. I want my mech right now.
Right. Well, that's one thing that Fallout 4 did very differently this time from Fallout 3 is you get the power suit in the first mission and you have that the entire game. So that I will admit that it's interesting. It's kind of pros and cons because in some ways it's really cool because you get this cool thing that was super, super awesome that you never really done before from the old game. You get it so early, but at the same time, then you can be like super overpowered in certain situations. And it kind of feels like, did they give it to me too early? So I think you're right in that there needs to be a balance struck there, where you don't have to play 20 hours to get the cool stuff, but maybe, ease into it.
But in spite of all those annoyances, and another one actually is all the text on the screen seems rather small, and there's so much information displayed that if you don't have a massive TV that you're sitting really close to, you kind of get lost in it.
Yeah, you know what? That brings up a good segue into one of the games that I played this week, and that is the Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing on Xbox One, one of the free games with gold this month. I think actually that this game may have released at the same time that it was free for gold members.
Oh, real quick though, I said a lot of complaints. You just want to note that those are all very minor, and the game is still amazingly fun. Just so,
but it sounds like, unlike Mega Man, in this case, the X is not the better part of the series.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off making that determination though until I've gotten a little closer to the end of the game. So maybe 100 or 2 hours later.
I just threw that in there for Nick, to be honest.
Well, I mean, he's probably out there playing it. So.
Well, he's probably out there watching Netflix or something. So, well, yeah. So Van Helsing on Xbox One. You mentioned how the menu systems are a little messy and overwhelming for Xenoblade Chronicles X. And it's the same thing in not just in Van Helsing. Fallout 4 suffers from this. I feel as though game developers are really good at making games, but they're terrible at user experience and they're terrible at information architecture. And I feel like they need to get some traditional, just interactive media user experience people to consult them a little more on some of these games and menu systems, because there's just no way that they have user tested these menu systems in a way where they made it easy for the gamer to figure out, where do I adjust my inventory? What do these different skills do? Why do I have three different menus of three different types of perks and skills? And Van Helsing suffers from this a lot. I thought it was actually a serviceable isometric RPG, and it plays pretty tightly. It's got decent controls. It's got an interesting premise where there's actually a ghost who follows you around in the game, and you can actually level up your ghost and assign her different ways to fight with you or defend you, or kind of give you different passive skill bonuses. It's interesting in concept. The weird thing is that in execution, she never really seemed to be helping me that much or doing much of the things that I had given her to do. It was just kind of, sometimes she would just stand there, and the game didn't really explain to me how to utilize her most effectively. I felt a little bit lost. And then when I started earning experience points and leveling up and trying to level my character and unlock skills, there are just menus within menus within menus. And then to add on to that, you switch over to your ghost companion, and she has all these different menus of her own that you're trying to assign things to. So it was an okay game. I did the first few quests. I killed some giant werewolf thing, and everybody was happy and whatnot. But it's just nothing special. It looks very last gen. I think Microsoft is probably hoping that this will be sort of a almost free to play hit, since they gave it away to everybody. And then there are actually microtransactions. The one thing that really annoyed me was on the character select screen, the very first screen that you get to from the menu when you're creating your character, there are microtransactions right up front.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's like, pay to unlock this class.
Are you
So
really like pay to unlock this menu? Because it sounds like you're playing
yeah,
menu quests.
menu quest with microtransactions is pretty much what this game is. So, I don't want to like totally crap on it, because like I said, it is a serviceable RPG. I could see people enjoying spending a little bit of time with it, but it's not a game I would ever pay for. And then I just felt like it was really kind of annoying that they would be like, here's your free game for the month, but oh, by the way, there's a lot of content locked away, and this is really just kind of a demo we're giving you in a way. So it felt a little disingenuous. But moving on from that, I mentioned that I played more than one mobile game this week, and in addition to Lara Croft Go, I also tried out a game called Pac-Man 256. Have you played or heard of this?
I've heard of Pac-Man, and I'm wondering how they got such a big arcade game to fit inside of a tiny phone.
Well, there's so much wrong with that statement. I don't even know where to start there. But this is another game that was actually up for Mobile Game of the Year at the Game Awards. And it's even more simple than Lara Croft Go. I mean, everybody knows what Pac-Man is, right? So as far as mobile games go, I love when a game is not bastardized into mobile. So, putting the thumbstick kind of on the screen and buttons on the screen overlay that you use your thumbs and touch controls to try and maneuver like it was a console game. So it's great when people actually design for mobile and for, tap, touch, swipe type controls. And that's what Pac-Man 256 is. And that's great. It's Pac-Man. Everybody knows what Pac-Man is, right? So you actually swipe left, up, right to make Pac-Man turn throughout the maze. So instead of using, control stick or joystick or something like that, you're just doing the swipes as he gets to each turn that you want him to make. So that's pretty cool. It plays just like Pac-Man. Where it mixes in is it's also sort of an endless type game. So those games where you're constantly running to the left or you're constantly running forward, you're constantly running up the screen. So from bottom to top in Pac-Man 256. So as you're navigating through the maze, you're also trying to climb upward, because the pixels, it starts doing like kind of ASCII art towards the bottom of the screen, and the pixels start trying to catch you. So it's like an element of sort of those timed levels in Mario where the screen moves and can like catch you and kill you. It's that sort of thing added into the Pac-Man formula that you already know. So it's a lot of fun. It's free. So hey, why not go ahead and just try to play it and see if you like it. But again, nothing that's going to blow you away, nothing that's going to pull me away probably from Hearthstone as my go-to mobile game, but another pretty cool take on a storied old franchise that everybody loves to pick up and play once in a while. And then the final game on my backlog this week was a game called Rocket Birds. That was one of the free PlayStation Vita games for PS Plus for December. I don't even know where to begin on Rocket Birds. It's
Let's start with the name.
well, we did start there. We do have the name, but it's basically a game about chickens who are at war with penguins. Yeah, it's as weird as it sounds. It plays very much like one of those old Newgrounds Flash games from the early 2000s, is how I would describe it, because it very much aesthetically has that style, but it also does these weird things like when you jump, it's got this weird forward floaty jump, and you can, like, as you hit the ground, push back, but you'll keep going forward for a while. Like your character will like continue to walk in directions you're not telling them to walk. So it just has these really janky, not very tight controls to it. And then it's got the whole thing where like the arm kind of moves independently of the character, and you pick up an Uzi or a shotgun and you're just blasting away thousands of penguins. So it's just like this weird game, kind of side scroller, where 2D side scroller where you're just infiltrating the penguins' bases, walking through the various rooms to kill them and get key cards to unlock gates to get to the next section. Overall, it's a pretty boring game. It's just it doesn't do really anything.
It's funny because your description does not sound boring at all.
I mean, the idea is funny, right? It's like a neat idea, but gameplay wise, it's just completely vanilla. It's, like I said, it's like Flash games that we all played 15 years ago. So it's just not fun to play. But here's one little caveat: is eventually you get to levels where your chicken gets a jetpack and you're flying around outside of the penguin's big giant zeppelin, and these other penguins come out on their jetpacks and they're trying to shoot at you, and you're doing this kind of like dogfight in the air. That part's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. The camera angle zooms out like way too far, though. It's everything's like really tiny, almost just a couple pixels high on the screen when it's doing that. So it makes it a little difficult. But again, even that part is not as good as, say, something like Luftrausers on the Vita. And like, why wouldn't I just go play that game, which does 2D dogfighting better than anything I've ever seen, and super fun game on the Vita? Why would I just play that in like one level here and there in this game that's otherwise fairly terrible? So can't recommend Rocket Birds. I think out of all the games that I played this week, the one that I would recommend is probably Lara Croft Go for mobile. And maybe, just maybe, this last game, Gauntlet Slayer Edition on PS4, one of the other free PS Plus games this month. And that's another isometric top-down RPG dungeon crawler type game. And I gotta say, I know you remember the old Gauntlet games, right?
Yeah, I mean, Gauntlet Legends in the arcade.
Yeah, I mean, we used to actually go to the arcade, and I believe that game would give you a passcode so you could come back and like pick up where you left off in your progress, and that was so cool. And then I think there was one on N64 as well, and I just remember.
Oh, no, the arcade one was Gauntlet Dark Legends, and the one we played on the N64 was Gauntlet Legends.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, and those games were just super fun. They were a lot of fun, like just to pick your class and kind of go through those. So I was really, really stoked about Gauntlet Slayer Edition on PS4. I gotta say, I'm a little less stoked after trying 4 to 5 dungeons in it the other day. Part of that is because the camera angle is so far zoomed out that you don't get a good like visual on some of this art that they have in the game, and you can't really tell what's going on once you get a lot of characters on screen sometimes. So I felt a little disappointed by that. I felt like they could have brought the camera in just a little closer, and it wouldn't have sacrificed anything that they were trying to do, because at the current point it's zoomed out so far that you can like see 2 rooms away, and what's going on the map 2 rooms away. So it's like I really only need to see what's around my character, and I'd like to see that a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But the main problem that this game suffers from, it's a lot of fun. It's done by Arrowhead, who did the original Magicka and Helldivers. So it's a quality developer. It's a fun game, but it suffers from that same problem that like Magicka 2 suffers from, and some of these other games that Arrowhead, and then they didn't do Magicka 2, but other developers have done recently, where this 4-player co-op is cool, but they don't make it scale to just having one player. So unless you go online and get a full party of 4 players, you're going to get owned from like the second dungeon onward, because you just get surrounded by too many enemies, and you get locked into, you can't walk out of them. You're actually surrounded by them and locked into them, where they're just going to kill you. And so there's no way out of that. You can't like run away from them, because they just literally overwhelm you and surround you if you're only playing single player. So I did play it online with some people, and it was a lot of fun to get the different classes working together. I think as an online game, it's okay. As a couch co-op game, which this game does support, I think it could be a lot of fun, but I probably won't end up going back to it a lot, just because the single player experience doesn't scale, and it's just not fun. I like a challenging game. I don't like a game where I just get surrounded immediately and there's nothing I can do about it. So,
yeah, same here. I mean, especially with that kind of game, it really does make sense if it would scale. I know. Did the old ones scale, or were we just better at that type of game back then?
I don't know what they did in terms of scaling. I feel like maybe they actually just had the same amount of enemies, and it was just got progressively easier the more people that you had.
Honestly, I don't remember, because I've never played by myself. I always played with at least Nick and someone who should not be named, and you. So I have no idea.
Yeah, I know I definitely played through those games single player, and I know that like it's not a matter of skill in this situation. It's a matter of the game spawns too many enemies for you to be able to move anywhere, unless you were to have 4 players who are also surrounding the enemies to clear them out fast enough.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's more that than them making the game really difficult. It's kind of about placement of the enemies on the screen overwhelming you and making you unable to just move and do anything. So I think that's the issue with this game, and I think this is more you're walking through rooms and you're fighting like in each room. Whereas if I remember correctly, the old game was more like exploring through a level. So if you wanted to get away from enemies and heal up or charge your mana or something like that, I think you could a little easier. Whereas in this situation, you're getting locked into rooms quite often, kind of like Zelda, and you don't get the room unlocked to move forward until you kill all the enemies in the room. But I remember moving along paths through levels a little more in the old Gauntlet games.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a ton of news this week because of the Game Awards and PlayStation Experience. So let's go ahead and call in the news motorcycle and get right into that. So lots of news this week. We'll run through it as quickly but thoroughly as we can. And we'll start with the Game Awards, which happened this past Thursday. Before we get into the news of announcements and all that stuff, let's just talk about the big awardees. And I didn't put all of the awardees in here, like the esports stuff and things like that. I try to just include sort of the bigger awards, if you will, and let us talk about those and run through them real quick. Ending on, we'll talk about Game of the Year at the end here, and then we'll start up with Developer of the Year, which went to CD Projekt Red, who beat out developers like Bethesda, Kojima Productions, and Nintendo. I'm a little torn on this one just because Witcher 3 is the one game out of all of these things that were nominated that I did not get to play this year. I just did not get to it.
Yeah, same here. I had not tried it out yet, so I don't. I mean, but thing is I don't think I would choose Developer of the Year based on one game.
That's a really good point. Although everyone who was nominated except for Nintendo really just had one big game this year. which maybe argues that the winner should have been Nintendo, given they launched a lot of games this year. But it's also a little weird because like Nintendo has studios, like first party studios within Nintendo, like doing separate things. So it's kind of a little different. It's like Nintendo can produce more because it's a developer, but and also in some ways like publishing the games, right? But then they have like their own studios within Nintendo, so they have their own Bethesdas and other studios, So it's a little strange. Not really an apples to apples comparison, if you ask me. But
Yeah.
CD Projekt Red, like the reason I didn't play Witcher 3 is because I heard all the hype about Witcher 2, and I played it, and I got a game-breaking bug like 5 hours into it and was unable to progress any further in the game. And so I just was like, oh, this developer sucks. Like I'm not going to give them my money again. And then all of a sudden, apparently there's no problems with Witcher 3 and it's an amazing game. But I don't know. I just never, it sounds so big. And I've heard everyone say, oh, this game's so amazing. But I stopped playing it really early on because it overwhelmed me because there's just too much to do. It's like too long. There's too many side quests
these days.
It is, and I think The Witcher 3 takes it to a further extreme than any other game, from what I've heard, where you get like 10 side quests popping up, like on your way to do anything. So I don't know. I eventually maybe will play Witcher 3, but I might not either. It's just I know it'd be such a time investment, and I already got that with Fallout 4 and Metal Gear Solid 5 and many of the other games I played this week. So I kind of feel bad that like one of the biggest games of the year and the developer of the year I never touched, but you can't touch everything. And I, it's a process, decision that I made based on previous encounter that I had with this developer. So best shooter though.
This one surprised me.
This one not only surprises me, but I think they got it wrong. They put down Splatoon.
I know, right? They didn't pick Destiny.
I mean, you know what? As much as I dislike Destiny, yeah. I would have put Destiny. As much as I dislike Call of Duty, I would have thought that was a better decision. Obviously, my choice would be Halo 5 out of who was nominated for this award, but Splatoon's not even really a shooter.
I mean, well, I guess it depends on how you define. You are shooting. It falls into that category better than any of the other categories. So.
No, you're right. I get a little.
It's certainly not. I think that might play into why it was chosen just a bit, though, just because of how different and non-traditional it is. I mean, some people thought it was kind of refreshing because it wasn't the same thing. But at the same time, people who play shooters are wanting a particular kind of experience. So yeah, I have very mixed feelings about that.
Yeah. Am I coming through your speakers there?
Huh?
Am I coming through your speakers there?
Yes.
I'm like hearing some feedback.
Well, that's weird.
It all of a sudden just started getting some echo going.
How about now?
Headphones.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. I'm not hearing myself now. Awesome.
That's weird. That didn't happen last time.
it also just started, which is also weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with everything you said about Splatoon. I guess my qualm is really coming from the fact that I didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of people did, and I didn't have that much fun with it. I don't know. I have a hard time thinking that it's a better game than those other ones, but maybe you're right. Maybe because it did dared to do something different, it's deserving of the award. I have a different problem with Splatoon later on though, so I'll let it go for now.
Okay.
So best action adventure game was named to be Metal Gear Solid 5, and that beat out Tomb Raider and a bunch of other games. But I think pretty decent decision there. Metal Gear Solid 5 is pretty solid.
Right.
Although, so interestingly enough, everybody thought that Hideo Kojima would be at the Game Awards, and there was a lot of sort of back channel hype about him, going to make an appearance there. He ended up not accepting any of the Metal Gear Solid 5 awards at the Game Awards, and people started saying, "Where's Hideo? Where's Hideo?" on Twitter and elsewhere. And finally, Jeff Keighley made the announcement that Konami lawyers flat out told Hideo Kojima he could not attend the Game Awards, that there would be legal action taken against him if he did. And so he did not show up. And then Jeff Keighley kind of said that that's kind of, not very nice and not so many words, and sort of dropped the mic. And then Twitter just exploded with all the hate for Konami. And I do think it's really kind of unfortunate. This guy's name is plastered all over the credits for this game. It's all over the box. It's like everywhere. It's just Hideo Kojima is everywhere to do with this game. And then you won't let the guy who basically like built this enormous, your biggest franchise, arguably, you treat him like this. Like, I don't know. I would say that I just would never give Konami another dime of my money, but they're already pretty much just making pachinko machines at this point. So
Yeah, it's weird. Konami and Capcom and those those very large Japanese developers, just what they do whenever I guess they have a slight problem with one of their developers that essentially make a franchise, and how they just ruin it.
yeah, I mean, we saw the same thing with Keiji Inafune leaving to make Mighty Number 9 instead of Mega Man. We saw Igarashi is now doing indie things on his own instead of making Castlevania games. So yeah, it's odd to me actually that Nintendo has been able to keep Miyamoto and so many of their execs together so tightly knit for so long, given what we've seen sort of crumbling at all the other big Japanese game companies. So interesting note there, but congrats to the Metal Gear Solid 5 team for best action adventure game. Best RPG went to The Witcher 3, so another big nod there to CD Projekt Red. Beat out Fallout 4, beat out Bloodborne. I thought actually that this one would go a different direction. I kind of thought Fallout 4 would take best RPG.
Yeah, I thought so.
Best fighting game went to Mortal Kombat 10, or X, if you will. There were all these other fighting games nominated that I pretty much never heard of.
Yeah.
So I think this one was a no-brainer.
I honestly didn't know there were other fighting games that came out.
Right, exactly. So best sports/racing game went to Rocket League.
Yes.
Who beat out many traditional competitors in this category. We're talking about like FIFA games and all these other sports games. Rocket League got lumped into this category and just blew it away. Well deserved. Rocket League also, if you ask me, the best multiplayer experience of the
Rocket
year.
League. Rocket
Yeah,
League.
Hands down, no question. Rocket League is the most fun multiplayer experience in years. And yet, the best multiplayer award went to Splatoon.
Yes.
How does best multiplayer go to a game that doesn't even have freaking voice chat?
I mean, I don't know, but I would say Rocket League. I don't know why Rocket League was not in like half of these. I mean, honestly, I would find some way to fit Rocket League into the fighting game category just to give it that award as well.
Well, I could, you can demolish and blow up the other cars. So yeah. I mean, if they could fit it into the sports game category, I don't know why they couldn't put it in the fighting game category. So, yeah, this was the only. Okay, Splatoon gets best shooter, fine, I'll let it go. But for best multiplayer, to have Splatoon in here with Rocket League, Halo 5, Destiny, Call of Duty, and to give Splatoon best multiplayer over Rocket League, and this was one of the early awards that was announced, I was just like, oh, this is going to be a long night. And then it got a little better, but man, I was kind of mad about this one. I'm not going to lie. I'm still mad about it. But there was some redemption because Rocket League did win best indie game.
Rightly deserved.
Yes, indeed. Best family game. I actually thought best family game would go to Disney Infinity 3.0, but Super Mario Maker took that category.
It's interesting. I don't know exactly what they mean by family game, but I wouldn't think Super Mario Maker would be best family game. I mean, you're making levels. I mean, I guess, are they making levels collaboratively with the family, or does it mean just something everyone in the family could play? I have no idea.
My definition would go more toward your first inclination as well, which would be like a party game or something that the whole family can play.
Yeah.
But I think they probably were leaning toward the latter,
Okay.
which is what's a family friendly game. So, best mobile game we already talked about, Lara Croft Go, well deserved. Best performance. This one, I love this one. I love that Viva Seifert won best performance for Her Story. We talked about Her Story right when it came out back on the World Map podcast. Go back, check out that old episode. One of the best games of the year. I actually, if this one would have won best indie game, I wouldn't have been mad, if it had beat out Rocket League. Her Story is an absolute must-play game of the year that has not got enough attention. It is a non-traditional type of game. It's just so good. It's the perfect game for the PC platform because you're typing things in and you're clicking around with the mouse. And her acting, man, Viva Seifert's performance, it well deserved this award. And she beat out Camilla Luddington, who voiced Lara Croft. She beat out Mark Hamill's Joker from the Arkham series, Arkham Knight this year that came out. Kiefer Sutherland wasn't even nominated for being the voice of Snake, probably more so because Snake barely talks in Metal Gear Solid 5, but I just think that's funny because I hate that it's not David Hayter. But yeah, best performance, absolutely. And that whole game really is just her performance. I mean, 90% of that game is you watching her on camera and then reacting to whatever she says. So, and she's not bad to look at either. So, this game, you got to go play Her Story. If you haven't, everybody just do it. All right. One more game of the year. Now, the nominees for game of the year were games like Fallout 4, Metal Gear Solid 5 was in there, Mario Maker was in there, Bloodborne was in there, but the award went to The Witcher 3.
See, I can't really comment on that because that's the one game I didn't play.
I know, but I don't think we're
so
alone in that. I feel like a lot of people never played The Witcher 3 this year, and so it's just like I think it was just too intimidating, and for people to even get into. I think Bloodborne probably had the same problem. A lot of people intimidated by that. I do, after seeing the footage in a lot of these nominee videos, I feel like at some point I need to go play Bloodborne. That's another one that I just did not have time to get into this year. I kind of thought this would go to Metal Gear Solid 5 or Fallout 4, to be honest with you, but I can't, I'm like you, I can't say that The Witcher 3 is undeserving, not having played it, but I don't know if I will ever know the answer to that. It certainly won't be my game of the year. And I feel to some degree that the game of the year should be a game that is accessible. If we're talking objectively, best game of the year, I feel like it's a game that shouldn't be like a turn off to play to people. I think Rocket League is I think it's a very strong contender for game of the year. I won't get into our predictions of what we're going to nominate yet this year, but I will say I think that should have been a very strong contender because it's just anybody can pick up Rocket League and play it. It's so simple. It doesn't suffer from menu, vomit. It's just a great game. So let's move in and talk about the reveals that happened at the Game Awards. And I'll run through these pretty quickly. You can tell me, if there's one that made you have some kind of reaction. But Psychonauts 2 was announced. It's going to be crowdfunded. Tim Schafer came on and announced Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts is a great older game. Glad to see that coming back. It's not something that I'm like jumping at the bit for, but
I don't know. I'm a little concerned because I don't see a lot of those older games transitioning well into the new systems. Like I can go back and play different platformers and third-person shooters that were old, but whenever they try to bring them back, the gameplay always seems off.
Oh yeah, like GoldenEye when they tried to remake GoldenEye. Yes. It's terrible. I mean, and if you want to really ruin a memory, go play GoldenEye again now. It's like a horrible game. I mean, by today's standards, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Far Cry Primal. So out of everything, I'll just say this right now. Out of everything that was shown at the Game Awards, the thing that gave me the most chills and that got me the most excited was Far Cry Primal's new trailer. We had seen a little bit of it. Ubisoft had already announced it. It's coming in February. It's the new Far Cry game that's set in prehistory. There are woolly mammoths. There are saber-toothed tigers. There are kind of caveman-looking warrior people. But they showed this new trailer, and oh my god, the animals stalking around. There was a thing where you know how you can like blow in your hand and make that cool like wind noise and like call birds if you're like some magic shaman man. They showed people doing that in Far Cry Primal. This game is going to be good. I'm predicting it right now. This game's going to be awesome. It looks so good. Very excited about it. So there was that. We got some new Uncharted 4 footage. So Sony showing off their big exclusive coming early next year. It was cinematic footage of Nathan Drake having a fist fight in a library with some chick. Cool, I guess. We got an announcement of a Batman Telltale game. We didn't get any details. They just kind of showed the bat signal and said it's a Telltale game coming soon. Again, doesn't excite me because I'm really tired of the Telltale games. They tell great stories, but as far as the gameplay, it's just not something that pulls me along to play those interactive storybooks. But then Shaquille O'Neal walks out on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pretty shocked to see Shaq come out on stage, to be honest with you. And also, that guy is bigger and mumbles more every time you see him. Like he almost sounds like Charles Barkley now. Like you can't even. I don't know what it is about these like basketball players as they age, but they start to like you just have indecipherable like speech for some reason. But Shaq comes out, starts talking about a little game called Shaq Fu. You remember Shaq Fu?
Yes. So terrible. Nick bought it about like just a few years ago, in fact. And the funny story is he bought it on eBay and that game shipped to him faster than any other game, and he got a thank you note. Like, thank you for taking this off my hands.
Oh man, that was my thing when they announced that this new Shaq Fu game is coming. First of all, I'm like, nobody, no like new gamers, like younger kids know who Shaq is probably.
No.
And I have no fond memories of the original Shaq Fu. It's not like they're bringing back some awesome game like Psychonauts. It's like, hey, we're remaking this terrible, terrible game.
Honestly, I think it's because of all the buzz Shaq Fu had gotten in the past few years due to the Angry Video Game Nerd review of the original game.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
I just and the trailer was bad. I don't know if you saw the little teaser trailer they showed.
It's the game is going to be bad on purpose. I am positive.
But it was like showing all these ninjas and whatever, and then it shows this little like baby Shaq, and it's like, wait a minute, he's not Chinese. Like what? It's going to be horrible. It's terrible. I can't believe that this was like one of the big reveals at the Game Awards.
You know you're going to play it.
I vowed that I will not play it right now. I'm telling you that. Quantum Break, we got some new Quantum Break footage. So that's a Xbox One exclusive coming soon, starring the guy who played Iceman in the X-Men movies. I don't know. I mean, I've seen all this great cinematic footage from this game, but I still have no idea what it's about, what I'm going to do, what the gameplay is like. So I'm really, until that happens, I can't really get excited about it. We also saw Mr. Lucky come out on stage with the Oculus Rift and talk the Rock Band VR is coming to Oculus Rift. Yeah, we'll talk about how unexcited I am about VR here in a minute because, man, Sony shit the bed on that this weekend. But one of my favorite announcements out of the Game Awards, though, Shadow Complex Remastered. By the way, that game is free on PC right now. I think for the month of December. It's coming to Xbox One and PS4. Folks who heard our show where I went through my top 10 games of all time will know that Shadow Complex from the Xbox 360 days is on that list. This is an amazing, amazing game. It does Metroidvania better than Metroid. It's the best Metroidvania game ever made, in my opinion. And so I think it's great that Shadow Complex Remastered is coming. I probably won't download the free one on PC because I probably want to play it again on PS4 and get some trophies since I have the 100% achievements on Xbox already. But this was one of my favorite announcements because the only reason I think that they would be doing this is if they want to hype up Shadow Complex for a Shadow Complex 2. So I think that's probably an announcement we'll get it like E3 this year and
or next year.
Well, next year, yeah, coming up 2016, which we're almost into, but not quite. And then also they said Rocket League's coming to Xbox One. So if you're an Xbox gamer and not a PS4 or PC gamer, and you haven't played Rocket League yet, and you're wondering what all the hype's about, get ready to lose your life to Rocket League. And then real quickly, let's run through the PlayStation Experience headlines. Now, PlayStation Experience, the keynote conference happened yesterday on Saturday. Another big gaming event this weekend. This one's supposed to be Sony PlayStation focused. However, despite the fact that I thought, so the Game Awards, the announcements were just so-so to me. I didn't feel like there were any big, like, wow, reveals or anything. But as an overall awards show, I thought it was the best one they've ever done. It was really well done, really treated the medium with respect. It was very well produced. So props to Jeff Keighley for that. And then last year's PlayStation Experience, the first one that Sony had done, I felt like was really good. This year, man, I feel like this is one of the worst events I've seen. The PlayStation Experience yesterday, it had some troubles. And part of it, I think, is because this is supposed to be for PlayStation fans, but 90% of what they talked about and announced is not exclusive to PlayStation platforms. A lot of it's console exclusive, which means not going to Xbox One, but also going to be on PC. So I don't feel like there was a lot as a PlayStation-centric gamer for me to be excited about watching PSX. There was more Uncharted footage in addition to what we saw Thursday night at the Game Awards. This was Nathan Drake talking to his brother Sam on a dock, and again, cinematics, not gameplay. So whatever, take it for what you will. More Psychonauts news. So in addition to Psychonauts 2 getting crowdfunded, there's going to be a standalone VR game for PlayStation VR featuring the Psychonauts. But that's not all the VR news. They came out on stage with PlayStation VR and tried to do this little demo. I don't know if you saw this silly ass demo, but it was
amazing.
There were the two of these guys. They're each in the game world. So they had like 3 screens wrapped around the stage to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what it was like to do the VR thing. And they had these guys on these pillars, and they're trying to throw discs at each other. And like one guy, his arms like completely disappeared, so he couldn't throw the demo completely broke, and it looked horrible. It did not look fun. It looked just very primitive, and it does not make me feel like PSVR is a technology that's ready to launch and ready for prime time in 2016. It did not get me excited, and it also didn't just not get me excited. It made me turned off to the idea of VR, and I was already leaning that way a little bit. But these demos they also showed some games like Gollum, 100-Foot Robot Golf, which sounds cool, I guess, but Zombie Taxi Company, a game called Job Simulator coming to PlayStation VR.
Because what I would love to do after I get home from work is to work. Or
right?
To work.
Right? Oh, man. These were the silliest, dumbest looking games that they demoed for PlayStation VR. Half of them look broken and janky. The only one that looks like it has promise is Res Infinite. So, if you like music games and you're a fan of the Res series, I guess, is that worth dropping $300 on a PlayStation VR for, though? Like, I don't know. I think Sony they focused so much of their conference on PlayStation VR, and all they really did was turn gamers off. I mean, and they even said, like, it's really tough to demo VR on stage and show you what it's like without you experiencing it. Then why try? Like, why shoot yourself in the foot like that?
I mean, that's something I think Nintendo kind of did right when they showed off the 3DS to begin with. They said, we can't really show this off on a stage. And so they just brought a 3DS attached to a person for each and every audience member to try out.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Well, and then they proliferate. You can't walk into a Target without a 3DS being there.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're really going to have to get this out for people to try in some kind of large scale just to get a lot of people on board, I think.
Indeed, yeah. There was one thing that got me so stoked, and it's the same thing that got me so stoked at E3 when they announced that Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming back.
Yes.
Oh man, they showed more Final Fantasy VII. It's amazing. It looks so good.
Is that
There's voice acting, and they have finally shown gameplay and shown the battle system.
was it like a real time battle system? I can't exactly
Yes.
tell. It looks
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, and it looks just like, to me, they didn't talk about it, so I don't know for sure, but to me it looks just like the Kingdom Hearts battle system, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah,
If
but
that's what it is, I'm so happy.
well, the thing that would worry me a little bit is if it is like the Kingdom Hearts battle system, I would want it to where you can control any of the party members rather than just Cloud. Um, because first off, it'd be awesome just, playing as Barrett
Yeah, yeah.
in real
I don't know.
time.
I don't know. I would imagine that it'll be like that, but I guess we'll find out. But it looks so good too. Just
Yes.
visually. It looks they're I can't wait for it, man. That's going to be the jam right there. They also announced that Yakuza 0 is coming west, which is the remake of the original Yakuza that's been already released in Japan. That looks kind of like something that I might want to play at some point. The Ratchet and Clank reboot is coming in April. They showed off a little bit of that gameplay. I'm kind of not into the mascot platformers anymore. To me, it's not something that I feel like I'm going to gravitate toward. I've tried to go back to those types of games. I tried to play some of the more recent Sly Cooper games and just couldn't get into the mascot platformers. I don't know. Do you? I know, like growing up, that was a big
Yeah.
genre, but I don't know. Do you feel like that's played out now?
No, not so much. I mean, if it's done right, I think it could be done really well. I mean, wow, I just repeated myself. But no, if it's done right, it is really fun. It's just that it seems that they're trying to make it exactly the way the games used to play, and what people expect from controls and out of their games is a bit different. And so that's one problem. Ratchet and Clank, I'm holding some. I'm reserving judgment on that just because I was a fan of the Ratchet and Clank series. I was never a fan of Sly Cooper to begin with, and I thought the old ones were terrible, and I didn't like the new one either.
Maybe that was a bad one for me to try to jump back into then.
But see, the thing is like if you play a new Mario game, it's essentially platformer, mascot platformer, but it's still done well every time. Like when you play the 3D ones. So,
Yeah, I'll agree that Mario, and it's weird, that just raised, you just blew my mind
mhm.
because I don't think of Mario as the same thing as like Jack and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank and Banjo Kazooie. I don't know why. I just don't think of Mario like that. I think it's
Banjo
because
Kazooie, the first one was like exactly the same game as Mario 64.
I know, but I don't know. It's something about the Mario games where I think they just have that extra amount of polish.
Yeah.
Where I love them. So I've never really played much of it. I can't think of a bad Mario game other than Sunshine.
Oh, I know some people that'll disagree with that. They're not here right now. So.
That's what they get. Speaking of people who aren't here right now, Nick's a big Destiny fan, we know. And man, I texted him as soon as this announcement came out yesterday, and I said, hey man, have fun with that new Destiny DLC. It sounds awesome because they announced Sparrow Racing coming to Destiny.
Actually, that sounds awesome.
He thought I was pulling his leg. He texted me back. He's like, "Is that a real thing?" Yeah. So those little speeder bike looking things you ride around in Destiny to get from location to location. Apparently now there's going to be a Mario Kart version of that within the game. So
my favorite thing to do with sparrows is try to take them places you're not supposed to, like upstairs and like go over hops into spots that they're not supposed to be. So
indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. We also saw that Epic Games is going to have a MOBA coming to PlayStation 4 called Paragon. I think it actually looks pretty cool. A lot of people were tweeting that like the MOBA genre is starting to become too saturated, but I think that on PC, yes. On console, no.
Yeah.
So I think that this could be interesting, and Epic always puts out a good product. Ni no Kuni 2 was announced, so the RPG fans will be pretty happy with that. The original Ni no Kuni had a lot of issues, but it also was pretty critically acclaimed for some of the things that it tried to do. So hopefully they've improved technically, and Ni no Kuni 2 will be really awesome. They showed off Ace Combat 7, which will have PlayStation VR integration. That actually looked, out of all the VR stuff they showed, that looked like the most promising PlayStation VR thing to me. but I've never really been much of an Ace Combat fan.
Mm.
So again, not really sold on it. I did get pretty excited about Adult Swim, who is no longer just making funny cartoons, but has been putting out a lot of games recently, and is actually a pretty legit game studio now. Adult Swim revealed like 5 or 6 games that are going to be coming to the PlayStation platforms in 2016, and one of them I thought looked really great, called Death's Gambit, and it looks like a Metroidvania type game, so it's right up my alley, one of my favorite genres, and it's got kind of that retro style art, but like a little more bright, kind of Shovel Knight looking. So looking forward to playing Death's Gambit. And then finally, in addition to Fat Princess Adventures and Nuclear Throne being announced as out now on the PlayStation Store, we have Bastion for Vita.
Yes.
Months after it was promised.
Have you been able to download it yet? I mean, I know you were trying to download it like every
Well,
half hour at least.
I was so they said
it.
they said it out like they said basically like it's out now on PlayStation platforms, or out today or whatever. So during the press conference, I was like trying to download. Like, I wanted to get started on Bastion for Vita during PlayStation Experience, and it kept like it wasn't in the store. But then I did see like a tweet come out from the PlayStation account that like, oh, this stuff's now available. So maybe by like today they meant like late at night or something, and of course they're on Pacific time out at PlayStation Experience. So I haven't checked, I haven't confirmed, but I think it is probably now in the store, so I can probably download it tonight. And by the way, if you haven't played Bastion, it's now $2.99 on PlayStation platforms.
No reason not to buy it, quite
For the
frankly.
love of God, play Bastion. So good. Another one of my favorite games ever. All right, so real quick, holidays are coming around. Everybody's probably doing their holiday shopping. So I want to do a little fast bonus round this week. Holiday gift guide. Yeah, so everybody getting ready to buy Christmas presents, I'm sure, and other holidays that you might be celebrating around this time of year. So I actually got the question on Twitter from a friend this week about, what should I get my kids? Should I get them a Kinect? Like, what video games I want to get? I haven't played video games for a lot of years. I want to get my kids into it, get them something. They're the age now I can get them some video games for Christmas. And like, so what should I get? Like a Kinect? And I was like, oh God, no, don't get them a Kinect for one. And then people were tweeting back like, yeah, Xbox 360 with Kinect is like so cheap now. Like, why would you buy your kid something like last generation that's going to not be supported like very soon? I don't know. I mean, I understand like it's for a kid, but I don't know. I would think you would want to like spend an extra $50 in future proof so that you don't have to buy them something else when they realize that they have the old thing. I don't know.
Right.
So, and not to mention Microsoft has pretty much stopped supporting the Kinect even on the Xbox One also. So,
yeah. I don't know. Like, I could see why you could get an older system because they have a huge library of great games. That, well, at least while they're a kid, depending on how young the kid is. See, that's the thing. If they're really young, it might make more sense to get one of the cheaper ones that you don't care if it gets broken or something accidentally, because a lot of great games. I know I've not played everything on the last gen systems that was a good game. I know I have lots more to play to go back to. It's just so many more games get released than you could play. I don't really see much of a problem with that myself personally, but then again, I still buy games for the NES. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think once they reach a certain age, it'd be cool to take them back and like let them play some of those retro games. Probably
right.
for younger kids, those things are going to be a little too abstract and frustrating for today's kids, especially if they're like already playing mobile games on iPhone, iPad, things like that. I think that, if they're really young and they're going to be prone to breaking stuff, maybe like a 2DS is the way to go. But if they're already like getting into maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, and then you got to go Nintendo new 3DS, probably new 3DS XL. And I want to put the emphasis on the new there, right? So if any parents listening don't realize, there is the 3DS line of products from Nintendo, but recently they came out with the new, and new, I'm not just saying it's the new one. New is actually part of the title. It is called the new 3DS. And there are some additional capabilities. The 3D is a little better. There are some games starting to come out that are going to use the extra processing power in that. You get a C-stick. So new 3DS. I think also a Wii U is a great investment
Mm-hmm.
for the whole family. It's good family appeal for the Wii
Right.
U. Get all those great Mario games, Yoshi's Woolly World, Smash Bros for maybe the slightly older kids. Lots and lots of great stuff to be played on the Wii U. I think that's probably the
Mm-hmm.
best all around
And it's the
bang
most
for your
cost
buck.
effective,
Exactly. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Bang for your buck, value wise. You can't go wrong for Wii U for the whole family. Now, if it's like just going to be a dedicated system for the kid and they're really into, say, Star Wars, Marvel, or other Disney properties, then I got to lean towards a PlayStation 4 with
Right.
Disney Infinity 3.0. I think aside from something like Minecraft or some of the Nintendo franchises, Disney Infinity 3.0 is probably a game that's actually good, that is appealing to young kids right now, and probably the best way to
Right.
go there. And the added benefit of, hey, you'd have a PS4 in your home to play
Right.
those more mature games for other members of the family.
Yeah, I was actually going to say essentially the same thing. If you're really looking for the system for yourself and just using the kid as an excuse to buy one, then yeah, go with the PS4. Because
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
games on there for kids, then there are games on there that you will really enjoy. And quite frankly, a lot of the indie games and the indie support on the PS4, it's just fun for everyone.
Yeah. So we talked about the DS line, we talked about Wii U, we talked about PS4. What we did not mention is Xbox One, and I think a very specific kind of gamer in the family fits the Xbox One market. I don't think it's the thing you get your kid unless they're like teenager or above, probably.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And it's going to be a very there has to be it has to be because they want to play Halo, or they don't want to wait a year to play Rise of the Tomb Raider, or they're into indie games that are exclusive to the Microsoft platform, like say Ori and the Blind Forest, but they don't have a PC to game that with.
Mhm.
So I think Xbox One still appeals to a much smaller niche demographic, maybe even as a second console for some people. But I don't think I can really recommend the Xbox One as like an overarching, covering multiple members of the family type console. All right, so that's your holiday gift guide. I guess let's before we go, we talked about like what systems to get. What's the one game you would throw out there, one for kids and one for like say adults if you want to get like your husband or wife a game. I'm going to say for kids I'm going to go Disney Infinity 3.0. For everybody else I'm going to say probably Fallout 4.
See, I don't know if this is a cop out answer or not, but I just say Rocket League for everyone.
That's not at all a cop out answer. That's a good answer. It's a good answer. All right, let's wrap up with a little section where we talk about non-gaming called We Have Hobbies. So we talked a couple of shows back when this was announced that A Very Murray Christmas was coming to Netflix. Bill Murray, man, he is a genius. You've not got a chance to watch this yet, have you?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Oh my man, I will not spoil it. I will not spoil it, but you must make it a priority to watch this holiday special. I was worried that it would turn out to be lame, and the only thing that I disliked about it is that it's only 55 minutes long. And it is it's good. I mean, it's not like the best thing Bill Murray's ever done. It's not like maybe even one of the best Christmas specials ever done. I don't know. But it is perfect for the time period it's set in. Like for today, where we are, we expect to like get this package from Netflix that's of quality. The type of humor in it is very suited for that audience that's going to be watching stuff like this on Netflix. And I think Bill Murray and everyone in this production did an excellent job. It's a good mix of, and the whole thing is pretty much a musical. I mean, it's all basically Bill Murray and his compatriots singing all the Christmas carols, both like the Silent Night religious type stuff, as well as the more secular Jingle Bell type stuff. So
Hmm.
there's a good mix of something in there for everybody, and it's just great. There are two parts. I won't spoil them, but there are two people in here: Chris Rock and
Hmm.
George Clooney. Chris Rock and George Clooney absolutely make this Christmas special what it is. The Chris Rock part is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in many many years. I rarely laugh so hard that I lose my breath and start having like tears falling down my face. That's how hard I laughed at the part of this with Chris Rock and Bill Murray. It's that funny. And then George Clooney does something pretty funny in here too. That I was just like, this is so weird and creepy. but it was hilarious. So, and then this is weird for me to say, but I got to give a shout out to Miley Cyrus. She knocked it out of the park. She does some singing in this, and man, she really is the real deal. I mean, she still has like a little bit of that country twang, but not like too much of it to where it sounds like a country song. And she does some singing in this, and man, she's got some pipes. I think Miley like blew it out of the park musically in this, and Maya Rudolph also does some singing in this, and I didn't realize that she had such good pipes. So that's a pretty good one too. But yeah, so I recommend go watch that immediately. Let me know what you think. All right, man. What do you say? Time to wrap this thing up.
Indeed.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. This has been episode 30 of the World Map Podcast. You can send us feedback on the show at worldmapcast@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat at World Mapcast. We do the live show each week here on Google Hangouts on Air. You can join us and ask us questions during the show, participate in Q&A. You can send us tweets or questions before the show to read. And then you can get the fully edited and produced show. Download the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, and visit our website for more at worldmapcast.com. What do you say, man? Any parting words?
I guess just watch A Very Merry Christmas. I'm about to do that right now.
Good man. I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to like it a lot. All right, everybody, be sure to go review us on iTunes and whatever platforms you're listening on, and tell a friend about the show. Super appreciate it. Helps us keep doing the show. And until next time, we're popping a very Murray smoke. Adios.